Hello, I'm the Progressive Michigander here with some news. So tonight, former state senator Nina Turner lost the Ohio 11 Democratic congressional primary to Shontel Brown for the second time. Frankly, I expected to be mourning this loss tonight. Um, I expected to be mourning it alone. I didn't expect to make a video or anything. Um, and I did expect a loss. I expected a loss because I think Nina Turner's campaign has failed for sort of the same core reason that I think almost every major figure in this progressive movement that was ignited by the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign has failed. I mean, I think those failures started with the 2016 campaign itself. Um, I think that the progressive movement has labored under the delusion that we can take over the Democratic Party in a conventional election, win a primary, and that the corporate Democratic Party uh, won't simply always be able to crush us when it knows we're coming. And um, I think we saw this when Bernie Sanders answered that he would support the Democratic nominee no matter what in 2016. Um, when he didn't place any conditions on his endorsement of Hillary Clinton, when he said, "I don't care about your damn emails," um, when he didn't take Jill Stein's offer for him to take over the Green Party ticket. I think it's why the Bernie and the squad endorsed the sort of mass delusion of Russiagate, rather than seeing it as a weapon would be used against them to stifle dissent, to claim that Russian agents were helping Bernie Sanders. I think it's why Bernie failed to attack Biden early on in the race. I think it's why they didn't see um, the Klobuchar Buttigieg endorsements coming in at the last minute before Super Tuesday. Um, I think that basically, if you think that you're trying to take over the Democratic Party in just a conventional campaign, um, then you think you can't alienate sort of Democratic Party loyalists, um, right? So you gotta kind of fight with one hand tied behind your back, right? You can't ever say that Biden or Obama or Hillary Clinton, totally corrupt corporate vessels, in the same way that the Republican Party is totally corporate and corrupt, but with just a little extra different branding thrown on. Right? You can't ever quite make it clear. Um, Nina Turner's been, hiding from her own comments about voting for Biden being like voting for half a bullshit, and also Trump being the full bullshit. She's had to hide from that kind of comment, even though we know in our hearts that Nina Turner still believes that. Um, Anyways, I think the same problem is why the squad gave Nancy Pelosi the critical vote she needed to be speaker without extracting or publicly demanding any concessions. I think it's why they didn't threaten to withhold their votes for the American Rescue Plan and demand a $15 minimum wage. I think it's because they all know there's a line beyond which the corporate Democrats and the corporate media will flip a switch and demonize them to a degree that frankly surpasses any degree they've ever been demonized to before, and that will happen. And when it does, it will render this project of sort of a peaceful, conventional takeover of the Democratic Party impossible, because any loyal Democrats, people just loyal to the Democratic Party, will see them as the villain, right? As helping the Republican Party. Um, and so they're afraid. So they're fighting sort of with one hand tied behind their back. Um, but so that's why I expected to mourn a loss tonight. And that loss happened, and I think it happened, in part for that reason. Nina Turner couldn't fundraise the same as she did before. Um, Post forced the vote. Post people seeing how the squad's disappointed them. Of course, it didn't help that the squad literally stabbed her in the back and no one endorsed her. They let the Congressional Progressive Caucus endorse against her without saying anything. And then at the very last minute, I guess AOC came around and decided to symbolically endorse her when it was too late for the endorsement to matter or help her fundraise at all. Right? But so Nina Turner couldn't match the fundraising that she had before, let alone what she'd need to um, beat all the Trump PAC money, or Trump supporters PAC money, the um, sort of cryptocurrency money, the majority for, or Democratic majority for Israel money, which is oddly enough mostly Republican, at least partially Republican. But she couldn't raise the money she needed to even compete against that because she couldn't criticize Biden, right? She's hiding from those comments all the time. And if you can't say why we're not getting the change that we need, why we didn't get change when Obama had a filibuster-proof majority, why we aren't getting change now that Biden has majorities in both houses and the presidency. If you can't say that, you can't inspire the enthusiasm you need to even compete. And yes, we can sneak people by, AOC, the squad, and then a second round of a couple more, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, maybe. We can get a couple people by, but they're always dancing on this edge, trying to avoid taking a step that would just be a little bit too far for the rest of the corporate Democrats. And I guess the reason I feel optimistic tonight is that for the first time after one of these major defeats or miscalculations, I feel like a candidate has finally sort of acknowledged the problem. And that's obviously the first step to a solution, and we're going to get into what the solution is. But first, I'm going to let you hear Nina Turner speak. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you some clips of what I thought were the most important parts. But you can see this whole coverage and a lot more that I'm not going to show you on Status Coup, which obviously did all the recording here. I'm just inserting my commentary after the fact. So I'm going to let the senator speak. After a couple minutes, I'm going to, interrupt to give a little more commentary. We'll let her finish, and then I'll give even more commentary. All right. But it's not that I sort of took the parts of the speech that I thought were most important to my vision of what we could do going forward instead of this failed strategy of running just these conventional Democratic campaigns, admittedly not taking corporate PAC money, which is good, and then trying to win without, going all the way in against the Democratic Party. Because I think she's sort of onto the right track here, and I want to compliment when people do something good that we want them to do more of. All right.
That we couldn't do. We know that they were wrong because this is just one step. We have faith and we have the fight. And so let me say this extemporaneously. All right. Sister Turner ain't going nowhere. My resolve tonight is intact. And this is what I do know. That in the spirit of Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, I'm unbought and I'm unbossed. And that's why that money came in here. Because they know in the halls of Congress that I was going to shake that sucker on behalf of the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class. But that's all right, Pastor Early. They can't contain this black girl magic, because what I am going to do is I'm going to take this magic all over this country and shake it that way. And maybe 2024 is coming. And I think the great state of California got something to say about what Sister Turner should do. The great state of Iowa got something to say about what Sister Turner should do. The great state of Nevada got something to say about what Sister Turner should do. But we ain't going nowhere. They just reinforced my resolve. And that just like King James, LeBron James decided to take his skills to South Beach, but what Sister Turner is going to do is to continue taking my skills all over this nation, and I'm going to see some folks in 2024. Hello? Stay tuned. This is what y'all asked for. My mama used to say, sometimes you're going to get what you asked for. tell you something, they ain't seen nothing yet. They gonna get what they asked for. Sister Turner unleashed. That's what they gonna get. That's what they wanted, turn time. That's what they wanted. And that's what they gonna get. So I see you all in 2024.
All right. So that was Senator Turner, all but announcing that she's going to run for president in 2024. She heavily hinted that she's probably going to run in the Democratic primary. If you hear that, I mean, really, like, why else? Why do you say California, Iowa, Nevada, South Carolina or whatever? You don't list those states if you're not talking about a Democratic primary. But interestingly enough, actually, post this speech, which still isn't over, I'm going to play a little clip of some more of what she said. She actually told Jordan Sheridan that she is still considering running as an independent. So that door is still open, which I think is important, and I'm going to get to why eventually because of what I would really like to see happen, why I'm glad that she's leaving both the Democratic primary and the third party option open. But all right, so let's talk about a little of, so she kept talking about how, this is what they wanted. And I think that could be seen in a couple different lights. One is this is what the progressive base has wanted for a long time. This is what, people like Jimmy Dore, not to give him a bad name, Nina Turner once called him her spirit animal. This is what, Breonna Joy Gray, this is what all the Force the Vote people have wanted, is, a sort of explicit run, not just a Democratic primary run, but a run against Biden, where it's clear that Biden is made clear that Biden is corporate owned, that he's a villain in this, that he's not some like doddering old man. He's not, he's not just some doddering old man. He's not just some weak figure. He's a tool of corporate power that's being wielded against us. And that she's going to come after him. Why is she going to come after him? Because the corporate donors came after her and they're all one. It's not like what the corporate donors do with respect to Nina Turner in one congressional race is isolated. It's core to what she's fighting against and what the progressive movement's fighting against. And so I think that's sort of an important realization of who the enemy is, because you have to define your enemy. And then I think the other half of this is that she sort of admitted that the corporate money had drowned her out, that in a way, she's not going to run for the congressional district for a third time or a fourth time and just keep running and try to win with the same, played out strategy. All right, so I'm going to talk about all this a little more. But first, again, let's hear out the rest of what I've clipped here for us to hear from Senator Nina Turner. So there was a break after that, and this is her. That they were. This is her speaking again.
We gonna be all right. We gonna be all right. Bring it down for me. We gonna be all right. Bring it down for me. We gonna be all right. One more thing. I want this movement to know. I want the freedom-fighting progressive movement to know that we're going to start separating the wheat from the chaff. Now it's time for the true freedom-fighting progressives to stand up and be accounted for. We're not going to play games with the pinos, and that's progressives in name only. All bets are off when it comes to standing up for the people. No playing, because this is what they wanted, they gonna get it. That's right. I'm really excited about what we are going to be able to do together. And I'm saying to the people of this movement, and the people who cannot afford to live, that not only is spring coming, help is on the way, baby. We gonna do this. I want the movement to know. This is what this last attack was against this movement. And if they can buy races in districts like this, they're coming all over the world, all over the country. See, they got a formula. This was a test case. They did the same thing to India Walton. They did the same thing to Senator Bernie Sanders. Let's go and tell the truth. I still believe in a higher power that is more powerful than cryptocurrency billionaires. Hello? Bishop. More powerful than oil barons. Hello? And to quote my sister Marianne Williamson, we are going to call on powers both divine and mortal. And this is time for the mortal powers of this freedom-fighting movement to decide that we are not going to take it anymore, and Sister Turner is going to continue to be on the front line of that fight. I'm not going anywhere. All they did was reinforce my resolve. That's what they did. So I love you guys, and I mean that. I want you head held high for every door that was knocked, for every person that came up to me and said, Nina Turner, you made a difference in my life. The mission stays the same. That's what I want y'all to know tonight. You can be, discouraged about what the outcome was in this particular, but I want you to think about generations of fighters who at times were disappointed, but they kept on keeping on. And that is exactly what we are going to do tonight. I want you to ignore what the talking heads got to say about this, because this really was the people versus the machine. And the machine may have won Pastor Early the battle, but we gonna win the war. Hello? We gonna win the peace. And I hate talking about this in war terms. We gonna win the peace. I want you to know that.
All right, so I'm going to let this just sort of play in the background, but I think there's some really important things there. First of all, she's sort of identifying that this is a tactical failure, right? It's happened over and over again. It happened with Bernie Sanders. It happened with India Walton. India Walton, had won the Democratic primary, and then the Democrat ran against her as an independent. The former Democratic incumbent ran against her as an independent, won, and replaced her. And so she didn't end up as, I think, mayor of Buffalo in New York. So she's acknowledged that this is just sort of, it's a failing tactic to keep running inside the Democratic Party. And, consequently that we, probably need to stop just running a conventional campaign inside the Democratic Party, which she doesn't, quite fully get out there. And I'm going to go into exactly what I want to see in a little bit. Okay, so a couple other things just important that I noticed in that little bit. One thing, she mentioned this progressives in name only, PINO, Pinos, which I thought was an interesting reference. Clearly, and then she also quoted Marianne Williamson. And I think it's probably pretty clear that she listened to Crystal Kyle and Friends had done an interview with Marianne Williamson, where they talked about one thing Kyle complained about was that we never use the term dinos. It's like we're letting them take over the Democratic Party. And we never, Republicans use the term rhino to describe Republican in name onlys to refer to sort of the moderate wing of the party, the centrist wing of the party. And we never do that to Democrats. So Nina here is coining the term Pinos, pretty clearly a reference to that. At least that she's listened to it recently, maybe that she was thinking about it. And then she's undoubtedly quoting Marianne Williamson, at least in part, because, right, Marianne Williamson's talked about running for president, and clearly that's what Nina Turner's talking about here. And, I think you could call it an olive branch invitation, be on the ticket, be on the same sort of approach here. All right, so that's sort of the basics of what I think the speech was doing. And by the way, they're going to sort of have a prayer after this, which I thought was also an interesting thing, and a thing you'd really only see Nina Turner and Marianne Williamson do. They both bring a sort of level of faith, and she didn't just like do it in like a pro-religion way. She specifically talked about reaching out to people of all faiths, including people of no faith, people agnostics and atheists, but there's sort of a spiritualism, a deeper purpose that they talk about in a way that most politicians don't, including the rest of the squad and Bernie Sanders. Anyways, so I think you've got all those elements. What is to me the sort of best incarnation of this? All right, so you get a couple of options. I guess my least favorite would be Nina Turner runs a conventional, Bernie Sanders style campaign against President Biden, which would still be sort of a breach of the conventional etiquette. Bernie had considered running against a sitting Obama in 2012, but decided not to, and that was thrown at him a lot in 2016 and 2020. So it would still be sort of a major thing, could potentially push them to the left a little. Then there's just a plain third party campaign, either on the Green Party ticket or forming a new third party, running as independent. All subtly different, but in the end, basically the same, that you're saying, we're done with the Democratic Party, we're moving on, and we're going to start building a third party. But actually, my favorite option would be some sort of hybrid approach, where you do what Bernie Sanders didn't do. First of all, you say, I will run third party if, basic policy demands of mine aren't met and I don't win this nomination. And then you run in the Democratic primary. That'd be sort of the plain version of it. But what I'd like to see even more than that is openly run on the threat to run third party. So say that, and then pair with whoever the Green Party nominee is, or maybe ideally, or whoever your new third party nominee is, or say that you're going to run for a third party and start collecting signatures for that too during your Democratic primary campaign. And I think it could be useful in that to have two main candidates. I'm not saying necessarily it's Marianne Williamson and Nina Turner. Could be Marianne Williamson and Nina Turner sort of running on a ticket in the Democratic primary or third party, and then someone else running in the Democratic Party. But I think it might be useful to have sort of two figures, one running a third party campaign, the other running a Democratic Party primary that says they will endorse or join on the ticket this third party campaign if their demands are not met. And I think that helps in certain core ways. I think first, it makes you look more electable to Democratic primary electors, voters, right? So if they're concerned about who's going to beat Trump, well, there's going to be a third party campaign, a major third party campaign, if you don't win the primary. So it helps you there. And then it also helps, collect the signatures to get on the ballot, either for starting fresh or to make sure the Green Party's on the ballot in all 50 states. And helps you sort of build the third party movement. And I think the ideal version of this would be you got Nina Turner out there or Marianne Williamson or whoever running sort of Bernie Sanders-esque campaign. They invite, so let's say Nina runs in the Democratic Party and does that. And then she invites Marianne Williamson, or maybe not Marianne Williamson, maybe Marianne Williamson's more the Democratic Party type, but invites third party candidate up to the stage. And they say, and she says, I want to invite a special friend up tonight. This is allied our campaign. This is Green Party candidate. Whoever. Insert fill in the blank. And I want you all, we're circulating a petition. And I want you all to sign on to this. What it says is that if our core basic demands aren't met, if Biden doesn't immediately cancel student debt, all student debt, if he doesn't immediately use his powers under the Libby exception or the Libby model to extend Medicare to everyone as a human right, if he doesn't immediately pull us out of these wars, if he doesn't immediately stop sending military aid to Ukraine, if he doesn't immediately negotiate for peace, then if he doesn't do those things, and I don't win the nomination, if he wins the nomination and doesn't do those things, this pledge says that you will vote for this third party. Right? And so that's how you pre-commit Democratic voters Not when they're worried about Trump or DeSantis at the end of an election, but early. You get them to pre-commit Democratic voters to leave the Democratic Party and go to a third party. And I think that that would be sort of a powerful movement. And it's something the progressive movement's been missing. Obviously, it would upset some Democratic um, Party voters. One sec, let's get a little bit of a
said that we couldn't
screen again. Oh, sorry.
said that we
Sorry, I just wanted something good in the background on there. Obviously, that's going to upset some Democratic voters, some loyal party loyalists. But the overwhelming mass of voters isn't people already loyal to the Democratic Party. It's non-voters, right? This is what AOC said when she was stumping on behalf of Bernie Sanders. That it's not non-voters don't not vote because they're uh, disillusioned or depressed or because they've given up or they're lazy. They don't vote because they don't consent to be governed by nonsense. Right? So that's the overwhelming mass of the right. These are the people that Michael Moore talks about. You know, enough voters to tip the election voting. In Flint and Battle Creek and these Democratic cities, going casting their vote, standing out in the rain, the cold, surviving. Standing through voter suppression efforts. And voting, and then casting a ballot where they leave the presidential line blank, right? Those are the voters, right? Both the ones who actually did that and the ones who just didn't bother to go vote, not because they don't believe in change, not because they don't crave change with every essence of their being, but because they won't vote for a candidate running in the Democratic Party, not committed to challenging the corporate oligarchy, not committing to challenge these corporations that have taken everything from them. To me, that is the model for change. And so like I played you the bits of Nina Turner's speech that I liked here. And I didn't play like afterwards she did an interview with Nina Turner. And she did, sort of let the squad off the hook a little for not endorsing her and say that they were threatened and then refused to go into what threats there were. But I think that, what she's going to do is she's going to run a campaign sort of more like that, more threatening to the establishment. And obviously, even just running a primary campaign against Biden, it was perceived by the establishment as threatening to the establishment. But I think she could go a couple steps further than that and do what I've actually wanted the Bernie Sanders movement to do all along. And if she does that, I think it will be a force to be reckoned with. And I think that the corporations will rue the day that they, spent all this money, that Biden went and, endorsed Shontel Brown, that they pressured the CPC into endorsing Shontel Brown, that they pressured the squad into backing down and not openly endorsing Nina Turner except for AOC at the last minute. I think they will rue this day because tonight they woke a sleeping giant. And so that's why I'm not mourning. It's not that it's not a little sad that Nina didn't win. It's not that it's not sad that she didn't run a campaign of the type that I'd have liked her to see her run. But it's because I have just this kernel of hope that I haven't had in quite a while. Even as I was watching sort of the Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign win the first couple states, I just always had this question. I knew that the Democratic Party was going to step up to take it away. And if you actually think about it, the Democratic Party didn't even have to use all of its tools to stop Bernie Sanders in 2020. Obama never publicly endorsed Joe Biden, while it was still a contested race. So they didn't use all their weapons in their arsenal yet. And Obama's still one of the most popular figures in the Democratic Party. So they didn't use that. So I just don't think that you can just run a conventional campaign and win. I think you've got to do more. You've got to be more aggressive toward the Democratic Party, toward the corporate Democrats, toward Joe Biden and his corporate donors, toward the senator from MBNA. And I think Nina Turner's a little bit closer to doing that now than she was before. And obviously, none of these ideas are original. In fact, I really think sort of the best analyst on a lot of this. I mean, obviously, like Jimmy Dore did have a lot of the inspiration behind Force the Vote, but he sort of then drifted into kind of a third party only lane, which I'm not objecting to. I'd prefer that to Democratic Party only lane. Um, but I think Brianna Joy Gray has sort of had the best approach to a lot of this. And she's friends with Nina Turner, friends with Marianne Williamson. I hope that they're talking to her behind the scenes, or maybe they do some interviews with her and talk about this kind of an approach, a hybrid approach, which runs both the Democratic Party and in a third party. Because I think if they do, we could look back at this day, this night, as when something started. And I guess it's actually more mourning now. I couldn't get this out of my head and decided to make a video. All right, have a nice night. This is the Progressive Michigander, and again, I strongly urge you to watch this whole thing on Status Coup. I wouldn't be surprised. Status Coup is a new partnership with Breaking Points. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of this on Breaking Points. This Nina Turner's footage on Breaking Points tomorrow. Anyways, just strongly encourage everyone to look at this, because I think we might be seeing the start of a different kind of history, right? A different moment in history where the progressive movement moves on from these sorts of campaigns to try to take over the Democratic Party without really calling it out, because they don't want to offend the base of sort of loyalist Democrats, or elicit too big of a response from the corporate media and the corporate Democrats. I think we might be seeing a new model emerge. At least that's my hope. All right, have a nice night, and peace and solidarity.